Wow. We are at the town office, the workplace of Forrest Holzapfel in Marlboro. Today's interview crew is on audio recorder Rosalie Smith, on still camera Rosalie Smith, on video camera Althea Holzapfel.
And you are?
And I am Roxanne Bird. It's been 4 months since part 1 of your interview was conducted. I'd like to continue the interview today by asking you a few more questions about your work as a photographer.
Sure.
Well, what would you say are among the more difficult parts of being a photographer today?
Well, in the age of digital technology, everyone is a photographer, so it's hard to make pictures that are somehow distinct or different from what other people do. I'd say that's probably the biggest thing, but I still think that pictures matter, and photographs have a way of telling a story that nothing else can. So.
And what are some of the advantages over when you first began to regard yourself as a professional photographer?
Well, I mean, again, digital stuff it's so inexpensive now to be able to make pictures. Like you guys are recording this, and you know it's all digital. It's all zeros and ones. But I'd say that's the biggest thing.
How do you decide what you want to photograph?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, since I moved back to Marlboro after going to college and down in the Hudson Valley and at Bard, I photographed almost entirely just in this town. So what I photograph is, I've kind of limited myself as far as geographically. I'm going to take pictures in Marlboro. So, but you know, of so many different kinds of things. That's kind of the point.
Yeah. Is there preliminary research involved before you begin?
Photographing things?
Yeah.
Sometimes, but sometimes it's just to go and interact with the location or the people and then figure out what it means later.
Yeah.
I think that's more how I function.
What part does chance have in your image taking?
Oh, huge. I mean, mostly because on any given day, the light can be really changeable. So if you're taking pictures of people, maybe it's really clear, sunny, and then a cloud comes over, and then they might have shadows on their faces instead of so something like that is absolutely chance, but you can't predict what's going to happen. And that's part of taking pictures, is just you find out afterwards when you're looking at it, like, oh, this one's really interesting, but in this one everyone's eyes are closed or something like that, you know. So, yeah.
Who or what experiences have kept you engaged in your practice of photography?
Who or what? I mean, I think just, for the most part, it's just the way that I've learned to express myself, or photographing is kind of a way of pointing at things that you think are interesting. And so I continue it that way, and I also, because I've kind of limited myself to the geography and the people and places and things that happen just in this town, I have to really think through ways of how to show that in a way that could be both interesting and illuminating for someone in the future, looking back, or even myself when I'm an old man walking around with a cane. I'll be able to look at pictures of, like, oh yeah, you remember 2017?
The practice of photography has changed dramatically over the course of your career. I'd like to ask you to please describe your process for making a print. First with your large format camera, and then with your digital camera. Would you describe your process for the photographs made on film for your Marlboro at the Turn of the Century series? Then, by comparison, describe your process for the more recent show you had in Brooklyn, in which all the images were made with a digital camera.
Sure. Yeah, so the portraits of people in front of their houses, so they're taken with a view camera, an 8x10 camera, which is like the size of a small television set, and the negatives, each of the negatives are 8 by 10 inches. They're an enormous sheet of film. And the camera was on a tripod bigger than that one. It's heavy. It's heavy. I think all the gear is 50 or 60 pounds. Film holders. So I would go and make the picture. Oftentimes with the portraits, you're taking pictures of people. When people know that you're looking at them, they often get kind of squirmy. So I found at times that I would have the camera set up and the location that I wanted, you know, so the house was looking the way I wanted it to look, and would set the camera up. Uh-oh, this thing is feeding back. So that way I could snap the picture when the people were just looking at the camera. I wasn't looking at them, if that makes sense. But each negative has to be developed by hand in an open tray of chemicals. You know, so that's kind of gross, you know, it's chemically, and you're and then so yeah, each one they're done one at a time, whereas like a digital camera you can take 60 pictures in a second, and you know, each one has happened. But with the view camera, it's very slow and intentional. You know, each thing and how you frame the camera, how you frame the image in the camera, it's all very slow and tedious on one level, but also then when you have the final picture, you feel like, wow, I really paid attention to all of the things in it. So.
I have a Polaroid camera.
Do you? Oh, okay, cool. That's great. So, then the second group of work that I did, we're all with the DSLR camera, so it's a, you know, higher end digital camera, and that was interesting to realize that when you're taking pictures with black and white film, you're somewhat stuck within a certain tonal range and such of that medium. With digital, you can manipulate things so much that you can really give things a different look, or multiple different looks, even in the same subject matter. So it's quite different.
Yeah. Do you still use your film camera, or do you work in the digital only at this point?
Pretty much digital only at the moment, but I do have all my equipment, and I even have some boxes of film, so at some point I'm sure I'll make pictures with the big camera again at some point.
How do you decide what images you're going to go to the effort of making a print of versus those images which get stored?
Yeah. Mostly gut instinct, you know, a picture that works or one that doesn't, or the focus is off, or, you know, there'd be technical reasons that they're bad, or not bad, but not the chosen one, you know. So it's just a process, and I think that editing is almost just as hard as making pictures, because you can make a lot of pictures, but then if you don't have a sense inside yourself of what you're aiming for, it's sort of pointless, and it's very difficult. So over time you get to learn, you know, what you like or what you're trying to say, and so that's how you edit.
Do you ever go back to look at images which are in storage? Absolutely.
I was actually just scanning some negatives this weekend from 2000. So, you know, it's interesting. I mean, some of the things were, I'm trying to even remember what they were. They were mostly landscapes throughout town, and a lot of them definitely looked like you could go there today and it would look almost exactly the same, which is cool. Things change, but slowly around here anyway.
You kind of already answered this question, but what might cause you to decide to make a print of one that you first thought wasn't worth the effort?
Well, because our attitudes and how we think about things change all the time. You can go back to something like, wow, why didn't I look at this more closely before?
Yeah.
And it's a mixed bag. And then sometimes it's amazing. Well, you probably have had this experience where you go back and look at your baby pictures and you're like, how was I ever that tiny? You know what I mean? And so the photograph is like serves as that slice of a second.
Yeah.
And then that's all there is, you know, because we continue to grow and change, and, you know, it goes on and on.
Because, like, even though everything is changing, it doesn't feel like it.
That's right. Well, then have you noticed that probably some of the pictures that you have, you've looked at since you were little of you as a kid, I think it's amazing that sometimes those become like your memories.
Yeah.
Instead of like, do I actually remember being that age and doing that? Maybe, but you remember the picture. And so they become your memory in a way. So anyway.
That happens a lot.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty amazing thing about images.
What are some of the characteristics that a professional artist should have?
Probably the biggest one I would say is being tenacious, which means no matter what things get in your way, you keep going. I'd say that's probably the biggest one. Because all of the other things, you're a good business person or you're really good at promoting yourself. Those things, people do, but that doesn't necessarily also mean that you're making great art. But as long as you stay doing it because you love to do it, then that's all that matters.
Would you describe some of the types of images you've made recently?
Yeah, sure. Recently I've made a lot of pictures actually with my iPad, and on a lot of the Apple mobile devices and stuff now they have one of the formats is panorama, where you can pan the camera, you know what I'm talking about? So I've been using those, except I've been taking pictures of trees in the woods from the bottom, rather than panorama this way, doing panorama vertically.
Yeah.
You've done that before? Yeah, so you know what I'm talking about. It's pretty amazing. So you get that moment where you realize, because you're panning and so it's almost like a video, you're seeing multiple things in a similar image that happened a few seconds apart. And I think that's pretty cool. So yeah, I've been doing those recently. And I also have a what's called a GoPro camera, which is in a little underwater, watertight case, and that's pretty cool. I've taken a lot of pictures of underneath the brooks around town, and it looks like bubbles and rocks and stuff like that. It's pretty cool. Yeah, exactly. That's really what they're made for.
Yeah.
But I've used them for all kinds of things. They make cool pictures. They're extremely wide angle, which is interesting, but sometimes you take a picture of something and it's like, wait, it's something tiny right way down in the middle and you don't really know. Anyway.
Okay. How would you say your work has changed over your career?
Well, I think I started out with using the view camera, and their pictures are very formal. They were kind of rigid in a way, but I think the storytelling part of it, is still pictures I'm making today. So that's what matters to me, is that it tells a story.
What were some of your early interests compared to what you are working on now?
In terms of photography, well, I took a lot of those portraits of people in front of their house in Marlboro, but I think I really love landscape pictures and just being out on land, and I like looking at like old cellar holes and mill foundations and stuff like that. I think that stuff's endlessly cool.
How would you describe your photography business?
I don't even know that I have a photography business, but the business part of it is poor. I made basically virtually no money at it. I think I've only ever lost money at it, but I do it because I love it, and I do it because it's important for me, being in this one place, to sort of bear witness to all kinds of things. So this was life at this time.
Yeah. Learning how to become an artist is one part of your work. Running the business part of it is another. How did you learn to run the business and promotional parts of your job?
Just kind of bumbled ahead with certain people. Mostly it comes down to the people you know. And the people you know, you help them and they help you, and you get work done, But I can't really speak much to the business part of it because it's something I'm kind of handicapped in. I'm not sure I'm supposed to say that, but it's the way I feel. I'm just terrible at it. Okay?
What are some of the more challenging aspects of having a photography business today?
Well, I think it goes back to the same thing I said before, is that everyone is a photographer now. So probably I'm assuming that people who work for National Geographic or something like that, they're getting paid well to travel around the world and take pictures. But for what I do, because it's right here, and the hardest part I think is just cultivating an audience or a number of people who want to look at your pictures. And so a lot of the pictures I take now I put on social media, because that's a way that everyone's seeing it all the time, but along with 10 million other pictures. So anyway.
What do you see as the future of your photographic practice?
More of the same, I think. I mean, to me, because I'm so interested in local history and in just being in this one place, that the goal of the work, I think, is mostly the effect of just stacking layers of what life is like here right now, as well as things that are like out on the ground, like I was saying, like old cellar holes and stuff like that. That's so cool. There's like a house. There's someone's entire life might have been lived out at that spot, and now it's just like a hole in the ground with some rocks. But you kind of have to project your imagination back into that space.
Yeah, like I hate it when you see like really old buildings burn down.
When they're falling apart, right? And you
Something like that.
think of how many people's lives went
that
into.
poor building.
Yeah.
Even though it's not alive.
Yeah.
What are some of your interests outside of your work as town clerk, lister, and photographer? For example, you are currently the president of the Marlboro Historical Society.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, that's something I do, and obviously spending time with my family is one of the most important things in my life. Yeah. I mean, the Historical Society is a whole other world, and it's something that I got into because I was interested in in the families and photographing them and stuff like that, and so it sort of fell into it. And now I think I can't even remember how many. I've been the president for a bunch of years. No, it's fine. I feel like I've moved the organization forward, but you get tired of doing it after a while, and so maybe someday I'll hand it off. Who knows?
Would you speak a bit about your interest in town history and the Historical Society?
Yeah. I mean, the Historical Society, I think, was founded in about 1968, and it was like many historical societies around the state. It's just people realize time is passing, people are dying, new people are coming to town, being born, and the Historical Society, of course, we have the Newton House down there, which has a little museum in it. I'm sure you've been inside it before. And so we have all of these amazing artifacts, but going back to the idea of the story, what's the story behind this horseshoe? Who knows? But you have to use your imagination to bring the things that are in the museum to life, and that's part of what we do when we make exhibits, is to try to share those things with people. And it's incredibly rich, and there are so many things in there that are illuminating. Like I remember reading written somewhere, I think it was around 1820, there were a group of young ladies who lived in this area of town, which was called Puckerville at the time. I'm not quite sure why, but apparently girls from outside, from the, as if you could even say it was more rural, but from the farther places away from this part of town, were really distressed by the way the girls in this part of town dressed. So that's something that's written down, like, you know what I'm saying? So I'm not making that up, but that's kind of astonishing. You think about, well, so how could they have been dressing that would have been so outrageous to these other people, when basically they're all like rural farm families. So anyway, it goes on and on. There's so many things down there, but again, to me, I come back to that sort of idea, the universal kind of human experience in this location. Interests me, fascinates me.
different topic.
Mm-hmm.
Also, would you tell me a bit about your interests in harvesting firewood?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I'm trying to remember now. When it was probably in the early 2000s, I worked for Dave Matt. Do you know Dave Matt? Yeah. So he produces firewood, and so I worked with him for a while, and I took some chainsawing courses, and it's just another way of interacting with the woods and being in the woods. And at my house, we burn wood. That's how we heat our house in the winter. So not only am I interested in it, I benefit from it directly. And again, I mean, harvesting firewood is another thing. It's like culturally in this location, that's just part of what you do. I mean, not everyone does it, of course, because it's time intensive and blah blah blah. But your dad's pretty crazy about firewood too. I happen to know we share that insanity. So.
Yeah, we heat our house just in the stove and we have a heater in the kitchen.
Yep, when it's really cold and you need it. Yeah.
What people or experiences would you say have influenced you in your personal life, as opposed to your professional work? And in what ways have they influenced you?
Wait, say that question again. What people or experiences have influenced me in my personal life? Wow. Good gracious, that's an enormous question. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I feel like everyone's life is kind of like a patchwork quilt of all of these experiences and people you meet and things I mean, I couldn't even begin to, I wouldn't even know where to begin. Your grandparents, they always seem like they're so bizarre and stuff, but then as you get older, you realize like, I'm really not that different than them, on some level, and, so certainly people in your family, and then, I think one of the things that I really like about small town life is that all of these people who are around you, you see them in all different kinds of moods and situations, and you realize like, hey, we're all kind of we're all in this together, and
all in this together.
Yeah. So.
Is there anything else about your life or work that you'd like to mention but I haven't but I haven't asked you about it? It says but that I haven't you asked about.
Oh, okay. I mean, good gracious, I don't know. I can't remember from the last interview how much I talked about. I know I talked about being the town clerk, but I don't know how much I talked about being a lister.
You can always say things over again.
Yeah, so I mean, that's something that, so do you guys know what a lister is? Okay. So, what the listers, in a small Vermont town like this, the listers go out to all of the properties and we measure them and we establish a value for the property so that people pay taxes based on the value of their house. And the taxes are what go to running the school and running the town and maintaining the roads. So it's a really important job, and I think that job has put me in contact with more of the people, of the range of people in this town than anything else. So being the town clerk is great, but it's limited to the fact that I'm stuck here and the people come in through the door. But when you're a lister, you like go to their house and you have to be respectful and you see how they are choosing to live and how they keep their house, and there's a huge range and you don't really pass judgment, it's just like, okay, I'm here to do a specific job. So I think that job has, unlike when I was out taking pictures of people in front of their houses, that was a much more person-to-person thing, and this is like we show up and we have to measure their house and we have to say, oh, well, what's that building over there? I don't remember seeing that. So that's really put me in contact with a huge number of people, and it makes my job as the town clerk much easier because everyone knows who I am already when they come in the door to ask me about whatever topics they have at hand. So that's been really, it's been hugely influential, and I'm running on 15 years of doing that. So So I don't know. That was the first thing that came to my mind. It's like, I can't remember if I mentioned that before.
Okay, yeah, that was the last question.
Okay.
We are hoping that you will take us into the town records vault to show us what's in there. But before that, we wish to thank you very much for your time.
You're very welcome. My pleasure.
We're moving now.
You better want to turn that off first before you move it.
Turn it off.
Okay, I'm recording.
This is the raw reality of after school right here. What's that?
I'm recording.
Okay.
Go ahead. You're good. Don't mind me.
You got in here?
It's like a huge collection of encyclopedias.
That's exactly what it is.
How about this, Forrest? How about if you just set this here, and you hold the microphone.
What?
As you know with a mic,
Yeah, you can't touch
every
it.
time you move the wires,
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm wondering. Is I could.
I can just also just put this right here.
That's kind of what I'm thinking.
Or here now. That's-
I think that's gonna be good because I can make my voice loud.
I can make my voice loud. I'm a Teletubby. Should I just move this with him?
Yes, but you're going to want to have those out because you don't want to.
Yeah, you know what you could do, Althea? I think if you just set it there, and then all you have to do is pan back and
Okay.
forth, because I'm basically just going to go between.
Go in a circle?
Well,
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I guess so. You're going to be where? Here and over here.
just like here.
Yeah.
This is a good mic. So
Okay, yeah. Is it going to matter if I open those drawers?
it'll make noise, but that's okay.
It's all part of the fun, right?
I feel so bad for Rosalie.
Yeah. Well, it's embarrassing, and you just feel like, oh, I'm so disgusting. Yeah.
But, you know,
She handled it.
Her rebound was pretty impressive.
It's good. That's often what happens.
Yeah.
You feel so much better after.
Yeah.
She also has very non-stinky throw up.
It's true.
Yeah.
It wasn't too bad.
I know that's like really weird, but like I usually like feel like I'm gonna hurl from the smell.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. The cleaning was.
No, she didn't chew her grapefruit for lunch very well.
That's what I heard.
Okay, go ahead.
Is it
So it's
echoey in here?
Plenty loud.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, this is the vault at the Marlboro Town office. We have some extremely wide range of types of documents here. Now, of course, almost everything we do is on digital formats. You know, most of the work that I do day in and day out is on a computer. Man, that's too loud. I think it just needs to be.
These just can't be so.
Is it squeaking?
Yeah.
These can't be so close.
Yeah, here, put them over this way. There you go. Okay, so one of the things we have archived in here
Roxanne.
are these documents, and these documents. This here, let's see, which one do I want to choose? This one is the original grant from the King of England,
What?
George.
That's
George III, by the grace of God, Great Britain.
It's really good.
17, well, he certainly didn't write it. Whoever his scribes wrote this, but that's his seal there. So this is the first charter to the town. So this is before the Revolution happened, before the Revolutionary War, 1751. The King of England granted this land to these people, these corporate name of Marlboro. And this is actually later. This is the I don't know. I'm without boring you with all of the details. It's a very complicated story. But then, basically, the first grant that the town got didn't take, in that the people didn't show up. So then there was a second one. So this is the charter. No, this is the older one. Not doing very well here. Anyway, these are the original grants, but this is the thing, this is the document that I really wanted to show you, because this is the original rights of the town. So when these towns in this part of Vermont were laid out, they were 6 miles square. So they were laid out on the ground as a square. There was 6 miles on each side, so 36 square miles. And inside that there are 64 rights. So each one of these rights is 360 acres. So people who had never been here before, now that's to say European descent people who had never been here before, because the Native Americans had been here before that for like 10,000 years, yeah. Anyway, so then when the European descent people first showed up, this is what they did, is this very rational, like put a grid over it that'll make it safe. We'll be able to figure out who owns what. And they sold, each one of these rights has a different name on it. So each of these rights was owned by someone, and some of them came from Massachusetts and Connecticut up to this part of Vermont, which wasn't a state at that time, and they went to find their right of land, and some of them built houses and stayed, but most of these people who are on here bought it as an investment and then sold it again to someone else, and over time the parcels have gotten chopped up. But what I can point out, yeah, it's pretty, let's see. So this is north, and that's Sunset Lake, and South Pond is also on here, if I can see it upside down. It's right there. And then this was the center of town. So each of these maps had sort of like the village center.
You tilt it up a little bit.
Was the idea. But of course in Marlboro, that place, that part of town, is the top of a huge mountain called Center Mountain, so the town is not there. Okay, so anyway, these are two pretty cool things, and it's pretty awesome that we get to have them here in the vault in our town. Little piece of history. So the rest of these are more surveys to land. So what it is it's basically like a map of a parcel of land that someone owns. Althea, you can just keep that right there, and I'm gonna move.
Oh, we got it.
I'm gonna move this over. I'm gonna just pull one out here. I think there's one in here in particular that I'm looking for. There it is. Okay, so this map was done in 1909, and this is a parcel of land that is well, look. So remember how I was talking about the rights? So there's the line between right 20 and right 12, and this is between 20 and 21. So anyway, they're woodlots. This is kind of down between Moss Hollow and Butterfield Road. But this is a really beautiful map. So this is done in ink by a surveyor on a piece of linen. And it's a really beautiful map. And it shows all kinds of fences and ledges and...
It says like the names.
Yes, and the names, so that's how lots of land are often referred to as the Bartlett lot or the Dunnican lot. And it means something to the people at the time, doesn't mean a lot to us now. But this is interesting. Dunnican, it's a mowing, so that means it's a big open pasture. Or mowing means they mow grass for feeding their animals. So anyway, we've got a lot of surveys here. Now next over here, this is the card catalog, okay? So this shows, this is all for the land record. So when people buy and sell land, we make a record of the new deed that transfers the property from one person to another. We also have vital records, which are births, marriages, and deaths. And in here, these are index cards, and every time a baby is born in Marlboro, we get sent a certificate that says the baby's name. I'm trying to think of, well, you know what, even though she's not here, let's find Willow. And she's under last name Romo. There it is. So this is a card that references the book. So I'll go get the book. It's on book. See, Roxanne, see how this works. So it's book 14, page 171. So then we'll go over here. Okay, you can just keep the camera still. We'll come over here, and then we look 14, and then we go to 171. And there is Willow's birth certificate. So
cool.
It's pretty cool. It's also, you know, it's dry and factual, but, you know, it's got her mother's name and her father's name, time of birth, all that kind of stuff. So we have those that are birth records. Same thing for marriages. Marriages, you know, happen, and again, like I could look up my own, but I won't do that. But you get this, you get the idea. And then deaths.
Not many people's died.
Yeah, it's not as many as births, because often what happens, particularly in Marlboro, so because these records go back to the 1700s, a lot of people moved away before they died. They died other places.
Yeah, I know 2 people that died recently.
Oh yeah, yeah. It happens. It's natural, just like birth, but our society is pretty freaked out by it in general at this point in time. So then we also have all of these red books over here. These are all the land records. So since book 1 up here,
Whoa, it's
a
long.
little bit dusty. Yeah, isn't that interesting? Format book. So
Really long and weird.
yeah. Well, check this
Oh
out.
my
You
God.
think it's weird? This is
Parchment
all of
or
these.
something.
That's exactly what it is. And these books, the prior town clerks have done such a wonderful job. They didn't do the work themselves, but sending these out to have them restored. See, so you can see how they've repaired this page
It's so cool.
with this.
Tracing?
Yeah, it is. It's something like that, but it's, you know, so they're non-acid and all of this kind of thing. But the thing that's amazing to keep in mind is that, so when a deed was recorded, the town clerk had to transcribe that piece of paper into the books. So they were literally just copying one piece of paper into this book. And their handwriting was really pretty amazing. They also, many of these would have been, they would be making their own ink and their own pens.
Yep, we made quill pens and art.
You've made quill today, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. So you see how hard it is, right? It's not easy. So anyway, oh yeah, there's Francis Whitmore. He was the second settler of Marlboro.
Who is number 1?
Abel Stockwell. So says the book, yeah. And actually, Abel Stockwell's, the first house is right near where you live. Right near the Barna Clark spring. You know where that is? The spring that's right on the road?
Oh, yeah, I
Yeah,
know that.
right near there is where the first settler moved to. So anyway, so the land record books roll on and on here. And my assistant Evan and we're now in book 61. And you can see what these look like by comparison. These are all computer generated.
March 22nd, 2017?
Yeah, it's just from a couple days ago, yeah. So anyway, so this is, again, this is another deed. Well, these are property transfer tax return. There's a warranty deed. So what that is it's, you know, one person selling their parcel of land and the house that's on it to someone else. Okay.
It's just for the label.
This?
Yeah.
Yeah, just as an easy way in these shelves to see what's where. Because you know, the biggest thing is, you know, being the town clerk and being responsible for all of these records, the most important thing is that other people can find them, can find whatever it is that they're looking for. So that's part of my job, is to help them do that.
Yeah, they kind of look like they grow bigger, but then they grow a little smaller again.
They do. These were the you can see the spine of the book changed because we realized that these size books, there's a lot of dead space. See how all this space that's between here and here could be more pages, and then the quicker we fill these up, the quicker we have to get another one and move other things around, and so at some point we'll run out of space, but I'm not too worried about it at the moment.
Looks like 3 more books.
Yeah, 3 more books, but then we move on to this, and it's 2,
Yeah.
4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, you know, it's a long time. So let's see, there are more records in here. These are all records that are
Sam, can you move over a little bit?
by people's tax map number. So everyone who owns a parcel of land, like your folks, they have a parcel of land and they have a file like this that has whatever their number is at the top. And this is a record of zoning permits. So there's one. That's a really nice drawing that they did to put a raised roof on their mobile home. So again, the idea is just that we keep a record of it, and then sometimes people come in 20 years later and like, what did I do? Can you help me? And then we go to the records and it's like, oh yeah, we got that. Let's see, what else? There are all kinds of other things, more old, maybe for the camera's sake. It's not gonna be that interesting. We could, if we wanted to, we could like make some scans or some close-up pictures of them, but it's hard to just see really what the pages say without getting much closer. We did vital records. Oh, all of these books over here. You pan over. See all this row of books behind you, Roxanne. These are all grand lists, and the grand lists is what the listers produce, and it's a record for each year of all of the buildings and land in Marlboro and how much they were valued at and therefore taxed upon, so that everyone can keep going down the line. I don't know, I guess that's that. Thea, it seems like you could, yeah, that's good. You get some good visuals of all of our stacks here.
Got some nice stacks.
Yeah, we've got a lot of stacks of things. Papers mostly. Over here, what's that? Yeah.
Like your guidelines.
The guidelines, yeah. Well, sometimes people are not very kind and conscientious about the way that they open books and use them.
Excuse me.
Yep. And I guess another thing I could point out is this file cabinet right here, although it's gray and boring looking.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's not gonna work.
Watch me work.
Is filled with all of the elections materials. So the voted ballots and unvoted ballots and stuff like that from the last 3 or 4 elections.
Keep this cabinet locked at all times.
We have to keep it locked. Because we don't want anyone thinking that maybe the election wasn't run right and that they would question whether there was something about the way that we handled the election that didn't go well or they felt was unfair. We want to avoid that at all costs. So take pretty good care to make sure that that stays that way. Yeah, and more files and things. I mean, some of these are really cool because they have things in them. It is heavy. So this right here. Okay, what do we got? Oh boy, look at this book. What a monster.
Oh my.
And it's really falling apart. See, this is probably what some of these other books looked like before they were restored. See how it's all cracked, and this is leather. And see how it's all cracked and falling apart? It's just what happens over time.
very warped.
It's extremely warped, and we'll see what we can. Oh, I've got it upside down and backwards. There we go. Oh, there's a birth certificate in here. That's not right. Let's see, what do we got? A boy born June 12th, 1897 in Marlboro, Vermont. Full name of mother is Ella Halliday.
Never heard of her.
No, she was aged 39 when she had her baby. And the father's name is, I have a hard time reading that. Right there, below Marlboro, Vermont. Martin J. Yeah.
Oh.
You get good at reading this stuff over time. Martin J.
Something.
Oh boy. Can't quite read it. Anyway, I don't know what it's doing in this book, but anyway, these are like George Adams. Oh, good gracious. So you know what this book is? This book is listings of things that people owned and paid taxes on. I think this is like poll tax. Personal property. So this guy, this is W.W. Salter, it looks like. One red and white cow, 2 years old.
One red and white cow.
One red and white cow, 9 years old. One pair of yearling steers. 3 steer calves, 2 red and white. 2 heifer cows, red and white. 2 shoats, which are baby pigs. And one something else that I can't read. W.W. Salter. So that's pretty cool, actually. This book, I don't think I've looked at this one before. Yeah, this has a whole description of personal property. So things that they had at their house that were for farming, like this is, you know, the number of sheep and cows and stuff like that they have. 16 black and white Holstein heifers. So that's pretty cool. It's a lot of information. But do you see how it's information that you feel like it takes a lot of patience and time to try to pull out the things that are interesting. But someone who's trying to search on a property, like let's say, you know, someone wanted to know more about their house. Well, if these were indexed, you could go through and look under the name of whoever owned your house 50, 100 years ago, and you could see what they had for personal property. That'd be kind of cool. These are more recent things. Not so interesting, anyway. Well,
This is spelled like first.
Sure, yeah. The town offices were built in 1966, about. But this wall, like where Althea is standing and all that, or no, actually, excuse me. This part of the wall, this is what, when I was a kid, this is what the vault was, is just this area right here. So then in 1999 they built this addition and they added space on the back and this way, and the whole part of the office where I sit, behind that wall, behind that like desk, that's all new in '99. So it's 18 years old. And it's the walls are concrete. And it's the thing that's really important is that it is fire tight. So if this building caught on fire, all of the records would be okay because of the concrete walls. Yeah, it's really important. And it used to be that the town clerk's papers and all of the town records were kept at their house, which is kind of scary. So it's good that it's all here and it's all in behind 8 inches of concrete. So, yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. See you next time.